Would you agree that preventing at-risk youth from going into the criminal justice system is a smart strategy? If you do, then you want to check out Alison Wheeler and Gary Ryan's next interview with Lyndon Jones, the owner of NextGenEdge. What Lyndon does is he helps with his programs and coaching help the youth and parents of at-risk youth not end up where you don't want them to go and to get onto the path to a great life. Let's go. Welcome, Lyndon. It's absolutely delightful to have you here with us. Would you like to just tell everyone a little bit about what NextGenEdge is?
Yeah, so Next Gen Edge is it's a youth life coaching and development business. But I like to think of it a bit more of a movement. And it's really about educating the public. You know, young people today unfortunately have a pretty bad rap, and there's a lot of stereotypes. You know, one of my least favorite things to hear is kids these days. You know, you hear that quite a lot. And so it's really just about educating the public whilst also helping young people to build and develop, you know, life skills and you know, things that they can kind of take with them into the future. Things that it stems from the things that I never had when I was young, that I've had to learn the hard way. So it's about really trying to get them a step ahead, um, you know, before they need to kind of learn life's hard lessons.
And as a result of this avenue that you've gone down and helping to raise the public's understanding of youth today, and I love how you said, I hate that phrase, kids these days. What catalyzed you to go down this journey and start this business, Lyndon?
So it probably starts in 2019. I was about 18 months into a criminology and criminal justice degree at Griffith University here in Queensland. And I was asked a question in one of the courses, where do I see myself in 10 years? And and I just said that I would love to use my entrepreneurial brain to build a business around helping youth and helping young people. And the helping young people thing really came from again about halfway through my degree. I found myself really gravitating towards courses that were related to, you know, youth justice and you know, community development around young people and crime prevention and early intervention. Um, and so that's really my passion is about you know, getting people when they're young before they really make big mistakes, not just in crime and criminal matters, but in any aspect of their life, right? Sometimes if you make a mistake, it can set you back 5 years. So catching people early and being there as someone who can walk beside them and help them to you know, build their life into something really meaningful.
And one of the things I've learned about your business, Lyndon, is that it's not just what people might think is the lower socioeconomic cohort of folk that you're looking at here, because these challenges can pop up at any socio-economic level.
Yeah, definitely. And it's something that I've seen in my full-time work that I do, you know, obviously while I'm trying to build Next Gen Edge. Is I've seen young people in out-of-home care and in the criminal justice system who have successful families, you know, and you know, I think of even in my family, I've seen it happen where a young person who's come from a good background, a good family, and they get in with the wrong crowd or they just start to make the wrong decisions and it really snowballs.
What do,
Um,
what do you think when someone's going down that path, Lyndon? How do you bring them back? What do you think the catalysts are to bring someone back or to prevent even to prevent that in the first place?
yeah, great question. I think there's a few different ways. It really depends on the reasons why. So the first thing you got to understand is why has this started to happen? For some people, it could be a trauma background. It could be, you know, a poor family life. For the other ones, it could be a subcultural thing, where they're in with the wrong crowd. And it's really just about connecting with them on a really personal level, and understanding that good people can do bad things rather than looking at people who do bad things as bad people, and really connect with them on that level. And then just try to get them to understand that there are better things in life for them and that there is a better purpose. Fundamentally, I believe that we all have an inner greatness, is kind of what I call it. And I truly believe that. I truly believe that we all have a capability and something that makes us individually really special. And so it's about helping them to find within themselves what that is. And that's kind of where the next gen edge thing came from. It's the mantra is like, find your edge, find what you're good at, and find what makes you special. And once you're able to do that, you can really connect with people, and then you can kind of start to, build that rapport and have them trust you. And once they trust you, you can really make an impactful change in their life.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Really a lot about helping someone to be understood and seen, perhaps, and a lot around purpose, would you say?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I didn't find my purpose, for example. I really like that you've used that word, until I was in my sort of mid to late 20s, when I was going through that university. I'd worked in just about any job you could think of. I'd worked as a manager in fast food outlets. I'd worked as a roof tiler, as a panel beater, as whatever you can think of. I'd done it, but I never connected until I started to find these things when I was at university and really connected with young people and the struggles that they face. And so for me, that was kind of finding my edge, and that was the journey that I went on. So it's about helping other people to go on that same journey.
And you were 27, Lyndon,
Yep.
when you decided to go back to university or to university.
Yep.
That's a big decision at that age.
Yeah. By that time, I was a husband and a father. I was working full time. I was making decent money. So it was a huge risk. But like I said, I just didn't connect with what I was doing at the time. It didn't fulfill what I thought, um, the world kind of had in store for me. If you kind of want to get philosophical about it, and so I just made a decision one day, and I'd always been fascinated by, the concept of crime and why people commit it and things like that. Because, I'd had friends that I grew up with who kind of went down a different path, and we had a very similar background, but I never did. So I was fascinated by that. Why did I not go that way and they did? And so I just said to my wife one day, I said, I kind of want the answers. So it was a little bit personal. And then it really turned into a bit of a passion and something that I have turned into a career.
And is the goal for you to work with the kids? Do you work with parents? Where go into schools? Like where are you looking to make those connections? Where do you feel uh, is the best place? Like if someone was to be listening to this and go, wow, yeah, I really, align with that. I know that there's some really cool schools down here on the Gold Coast that do a lot with youth
Yep.
that have, gone down a certain pathway and been lost in the school system. So, what it's like for the Mob Academy, for example.
Yep.
So
Kind of,
like for you, what's the avenues that are that if people are listening, that they can go, oh wow, I want to get Lyndon in
yep.
up here.
So all of the above. So we do one-to-one coaching where we'll work with the young people and the parents. And that's really just about, because the idea is not to replace the parents. It's really just about, because I think about when I was young, right? And, you know, my parents would try to teach me the things that they'd learnt from when they were young, and probably the things that their parents had said. And, when you're young, you kind of roll your eyes and go, yeah, righto, what do you know what you're talking about? And when I got older, I actually started to find myself saying the same thing to my kids. And I went, oh, damn, they were right. So my philosophy is that it's about working with parents as well as the young people, because at the end of the day, I might spend 90 minutes with a young person and their mum or their dad a week, but really a lot of the work happens at home. Um, and we also are looking to go into schools as well and run programs for, kids who are at risk of disengaging or entering the criminal justice system, or even for the kids who are maybe at the other end of the scale where they're really high achievers and are not sure, where their path is leading to. So it's about guiding those people as well. Um, and yeah, at the moment we're reaching out with schools. We want to work with schools with those young people who are perhaps struggling to connect with their teachers and their schools. Um, we'll do workshops with teachers and staff and cohorts, as well as doing workshops with the young people themselves, to really begin that journey of exploration and understanding who they are.
And Lyndon, one of the things that is fantastic about the path that you're going down with your business is that your willingness to engage with the young people and their parents.
Yeah.
But as you also mentioned about the high achiever kids, that some of those high achiever kids that might not be at risk of going down the youth criminal justice system space, but they might be at risk from the perspective of they've got this talent and maybe they don't come from a background of people who know how to nurture that talent, and that
Sure.
therefore there's really not that mentoring or support around them, that therefore they're at risk. Their risk is that they're not going to get to fan the flame of the talent that they've got. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so that part of the business actually stems again. Everything is it comes from personal experience. I have a very good friend of mine. He's actually my best friend. And I think about him. He was mathematically just ridiculously good. I think about there was a class. I'm not even sure why I was in the class, to be honest, but um, he we were given this maths problem, and it was like all squiggly lines and letters and numbers, and I had no idea. And he was the only one in the class that actually did the problem. He went home and he did the problem, and he brought it back the next day, and the teacher had put his answer up with all the workings out, and my best mate put his hand up and said, "Sir, you've actually got that one wrong." And I sort of looked over to him and thought, "Okay, nerd, like, as mates do." And he was actually able to show the teacher his working out and prove that in actual fact it was wrong. And he was incredible, but he never really had anyone around that could really nurture him and show him and say, like, you should take this ability in this particular path. I think he would have made a great engineer or something like that. And we've spoken about it at in depth. So it stems from that. And don't get me wrong, he's gone on to have a very successful life. But I just wonder if maybe he had nurtured this incredible natural ability that he had, where his life, if it might have been any different. And so that's where that comes from as well, is really that personal experience of seeing someone who didn't have people around him who could really nurture that talent and then kind of push him in a direction that would really build upon it.
Yeah. And I see that what you do and the point of difference of what you do is that there are a lot of government programs to help people that find themselves having gone down the wrong path and trying to correct them, right? I think the point of difference of what you're doing with NextGenEdge is that you actually want to capture them before that happens. And
Yeah.
so if parents are sitting there and listening to this or watching this interview and thinking, gosh, my child, I'm really concerned about my child. I can sense that they're going down this path. Like what we're suggesting is reach out to you and let's roll our sleeves up and take action before they end up in this other world where there is a lot of resourcing and funding, right?
Yep.
There is a lot going on there, but the difference is we want to take action through your business before they get there, which is quite remarkable.
Yeah, well, I think again that stems back to my studies. A lot of, particularly here in Australia, a lot of the criminal justice system is built around capturing people after the event. And there are some programs built around early intervention, but typically, you know, those young people are kind of already known to the system, and so they're already exposed, and at that point, there's already some damage being done. because whether people like to admit it or not, our system isn't set up for rehabilitation, despite it being written in the mission statement. The community want to see people who commit crimes or who are doing the wrong thing. They want to see them punished. And I just fundamentally disagree with that. I think that we need to rehabilitate and give people skills so that they can reintegrate into the community if they end up going into that space, meaningfully, so that they don't go back. Or even better, if we can catch them early enough so they don't get involved in that side of things in the first place, only to socialize with other people who are going to potentially lead them down the wrong path. So
So,
catch them early.
yeah, Lyndon, a question for you then is, so as we're all parents here, and
Yep.
a lot of people listening will be parents. What we're talking about we're talking about prevention rather than cure, right? Like,
Yep.
so get in early enough to stop that cascade of effect, because it's much harder to deal with it then.
Yep.
So, as a parent, what should a parent be looking out for? Like, what if someone doesn't actually know, and it is only when it really does get to that point. So, what are some early indicators that a parent may need to be looking for or may see that would allude them to, oh gosh, I need to do something?
Yeah, so I think the classic ones are, disengaging from education, um, disengaging from occupation. So not everyone is kind of built for school. Not everyone is built for uni or TAFE, and that's fine. But I think that if you do start to notice your young person starting to disengage from school, try to encourage them to find something else to fill their time with. It's the classic example of idle hands, right? If a young person has nothing to do, they're likely going to look for things to do, and sometimes they can look for things to do in the wrong places. Um, Even sometimes the people that they're hanging out with, if they're starting to keep secrets, if they're starting, it's really about being open in your communication, because a young person who's up to no good is not going to tell you they're up to no good, right? So you'll start to see changes in their behavior, changes in their patterns. You'll start to see, that disengagement from school, maybe just small areas of disrespect in the family home, little things like that. And they aren't necessarily indicators of criminal behavior, but they're indicators that something is going on in that young person's life. And so a gentle conversation needs to be had. I try to keep with my own kids communication lines open. I'll see my daughter come home from school and she's really snappy with us, and I'll know that, well, something's happened today. So I'll just have a gentle conversation, and if she's not up for it, she'll often tell me. And then it's just a case of saying, okay, well, now might not be the right time, but I'm available all day, no matter what time you come and talk to me when you're ready. So just being really open, um, and communicating, and you'll start to see a lot of those changes in young people.
Mm. So, taking the time to communicate,
Absolutely.
actually watching and observing, not being
Yeah.
blind to what's going on. So you spoke about the children that are disengaging, and then earlier you spoke about the high achievers, right? Because that's also an at-risk group. So you've got these sort of two, well, anyone at any point can be. So how might that present differently? Because it does present differently, right?
Yeah, well, you think about the high achievers. So let's talk about maybe the straight A student, right? You're going to see high levels of anxiety. You're going to see elements of perfectionism. You're going to see um uh you know high levels of stress because they're trying to continue to achieve at this high level. So I think that the best way to manage that kind of young person, as cliche as it is again communicating and nurturing that those talents. They're obviously a very gifted young person, either that or they work extremely hard, because hard work beats talent when talent won't work hard. And so when you start to see that stress and that anxiety, communicating and say, hey, what's going on for you? What have you learned from X experience? And really just asking the right questions. And even spending maybe an hour on a Sunday and just having like a reflective conversation about the entire week, so that you can start to identify patterns, you know. And I think another thing that I really preach is often we kind of focus on results and we praise results, but I think a lot of the time we need to praise effort. Because young people who put in a lot of effort but don't get praise, I've seen it so many times where that effort starts to fall off because
Mm.
it's like they're not, they're doing their absolute best and maybe they're not getting the results that they want, but there's no positive reinforcement of that effort. So really positively reinforce and recognize not only their achievements, but the effort that they're putting in to those achievements.
And one of the things with the high achievers is that they don't know where their talent can take them.
Yeah.
And so having your services help them become aware of where their talent can take them and the steps and pathways that they and their families can help them go down to
Hmm.
nurture and grow that talent and benefit from that talent is a big part of what I understand that you do, Lyndon, because
Yep.
without that, that's where the risk is for them. They just float, they eventually don't know where they're going. And so
Yep.
that creates demotivation over time. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, see, I mean, you see it a lot in kids who are, really talented. Maybe they're academically really gifted, and by the time they come to kind of choosing a university course, they choose something because, they think it's easy or they think it's the right thing for them, but it doesn't kind of match what they're interested in. And so then, they don't follow through with it, or it doesn't really turn into a meaningful career. And so I think that part of that finding your edge is also finding the things that you're interested in, because I think that if you align your career goals with the things you're interested in, you're more likely to go further,
Mm.
because you have a vested passion for it. And I look at my own, again, personal anecdote, but I look at when I was panel beating or roof tiling. I enjoyed the people I was around, but I just couldn't get into fixing cars or building houses. Like it just wasn't my thing. And that's not at all a criticism of people who are into that stuff. Like if that's what you're into, hey, get hold of NextGenEdge. We can help you get there. But for me, that it just wasn't it. My passion was about helping other people, particularly young people, because of the things that I had seen and experienced throughout my, early life. Um, and so that's what it's about for me is it's about, okay, well, how can we make sure that you choose the right thing for you based on what you're good at and what you're interested in so that you can turn it into something really meaningful.
Now you just said to get onto Next Gen Edge. What are the best ways for people to reach out and contact you, Lyndon?
Yeah. So we're on LinkedIn, we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we've even got TikTok. And then we've also got a website as well. Um, so www.nextgenedge.com.au. We've got a couple of free resources there. You can drop your name and email and we'll get in touch with you. Or you can give us a call as well.
Absolutely. We'll make sure all of those links are in the show notes for you. And Alison, what's the last question we'd like to get Lyndon to answer?
Absolutely. And we ask all of our guests this question, Lyndon, and I'd love to hear your answer. So what does 10x mean to you?
Yeah, good question. I think 10x, for me personally, because I'm very much, my life is around helping other people, um, through my own learnings. So I think 10x to me is about um, how you can impact the people around you. In criminology, we talk about the ripple effect, right? Where if you throw a stone, the stone being maybe the perpetrator of a crime, into a lake, the center of the ripple is the victim, and then every ripple is a, is even though it's a little bit further away from the center, it still shows other victims, whether it be the families, communities, etc. I think of that the same way, but in how I can help people. Where if I'm the stone, right, and you throw me into the middle of the lake, and in the middle of that ripple is the immediate person that I'm helping, and then every ripple outside of that is the next group of people that are related to that person and how I'm helping them in the long run. So it's really just about building out that way. And that's what 10x means to me. It means about helping one person to help more people, if that makes sense.
I love that. I love that. So it's really about creating a movement, a wave, that ripple effect of, at the end of the day, it's one person at a time, but the cascade effect of that is absolutely huge. So
Yeah.
I love that, Lyndon. That is like a really beautiful share, and I've absolutely enjoyed hearing what you're doing and your absolute passion around it. So Gary, do you want to take us home?
No worries, Alison. Linda, we want to thank you for joining us tonight. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely welcome. Now, folks, just like Lyndon, you can join the Scale Fast program with Alison and myself. We've got our sessions, 48 sessions over each 52-week period. That's a year, folks, in the old language. We've got over 100 hours of content that you get immediate access to when you join us. We're going to teach you how to start your business. You could be doing a side hustle at the start that you want to build into the main game for you. Or you might already have your business that just is struggling, because we do know across Australia and New Zealand, it is challenging to have a small or medium business these days. The Scale Fast program is a system that works. We've got the model sitting right behind Alison and my heads as we've been discussing with Lyndon what he's been doing with NextGenEdge. So if you want to make sure that you can grow your business successfully, make sure you come along and join us at the Scale Fast program at businessgrowthdownunder.com. Once again, check the show notes for all of that information. We look forward to seeing you all next time. Bye.
Bye, everyone.